Hey, freaky people. Today we are talking about the energetics of being seen. I was on a panel this last weekend, and the whole theme was about being seen and visibility. We talked about imposter syndrome. We talked about vulnerability versus visibility. What is the line there? And showing up authentically. It was great, but I want to distill the key takeaways from that and add in another layer that's really practical and tangible for all of you. So if you have struggled to show up online because you're a little afraid of putting your face behind the camera, or you've been considering building more of a personal brand in order to, help your business grow, this is for you, okay? Because I find so many brilliant women are just a little confused on how to show up online. And there are a lot of mindset hacks, if you will, that we're going to go into today. And actually, I want to rebrand that right away. They're not hacks, they're mindset shifts. They are different ways of reframing some of these concepts so that it is easier for you to show up, so that you know how to show up and what to be talking about, so that it feels really authentic to you. We're also going to be talking about how to get rid of those fear of judgment voices, those little gremlins that love to play in our brains, and they often get in the way. So we're going to flick them out of the picture with what we're talking about today. There are 5 key things that I came to when I really thought about this. I actually spent over 2 hours this afternoon just sitting with this concept of visibility and remembering my journey with this, because this year I've really stepped into being very comfortable being visible. I have always loved speaking. I did dance growing up, so I was, used to being on stage to a degree. But showing up as an entrepreneur is so different. And it is really scary at times. And I had a really hard time doing this. It was downright terrifying when I first started. And there have been so many moments along the way where, yes, I have cringed. And yes, I have been afraid about what people are saying. And I've posted something and then deleted it because I honestly was just too scared to post it. So it is a total journey. I am by no means perfect. And this is by no means a map to become an influencer. But we will talk about the influencer word that scares a lot of people and how to reframe that. So let's get into it. The number one thing when it comes to visibility is first getting clear on what is your why with visibility. If you are clear on your visibility why, or why you are showing up in the first place, it's going to make a lot of things easier. So I had to find this because at first people were like, just show up online, just get used to it, build the muscle. And I was. And people were urging me, show up online, even if you're in a messy bun. People like it when you just show up however. And so on Instagram, at least, I did. On LinkedIn, I kept it a bit more professional because they're different platforms and LinkedIn is just a more professional place. But on Instagram, I really did try to lean in on that. And I got to a point where I realized, why am I doing this? Why am I showing my cup of coffee and taking a selfie of me not ready, like in pajamas, basically, like ideating, taking notes, journaling for the morning? Why was I doing that? That didn't feel true to me or my why. So eventually, after a little while, I was like, I need to get clear on this. So my why for showing up is all to support women entrepreneurs. It is to grow my business and to help share content that delivers value, to ultimately build trust with people, and to also grow connections. I have met friends through this. I have decided to create a podcast through showing up online. It first started with doing interviews on Instagram Lives, and then I realized, hey, I love this. It's time for me to make a podcast. But it all started with my why. And when I got really clear on that, I was like, you know what, screw it. I'm not going to post pictures of my coffee. And I don't like showing up with my hair messy because I don't like my hair messy in general. I like getting ready. I work from home and every single day I get ready. I like showing up looking good because then I feel good. I feel like myself. And I thought about it and I was like, I don't even wear like sweatsuits, nothing against them, but like I like to even have an outfit in my PJs. Like I am that kind of girl. So if I'm going to be authentic, it means I'm also going to show up that way on Instagram. And once I fully owned that, it made it way easier because I wasn't trying to post stuff that people were telling me to post. The second one is stop caring about what people think. Now I know you're like, how do you do that? You don't just stop, it comes from an emotional place, it comes from a deeper place. But I want to talk about this because I think a lot of people are afraid that their friends, family, connections that know them think that all of a sudden they want to become an influencer. And this is your campaign to become an influencer. I am here to tell you that is just a fear coming up. We need to get clear about the word influencer. There are people who are trying to become influencers online, which is exactly what it sounds like. They build a following and brands pay them to promote certain products, and that's how they get money. Typically, it's lifestyle stuff, but there are many different flavors of influencers. Then there is building influence. That is very different. You are building influence around something. For me, I am building influence around a belief that business is more profitable, more fun, and easier when we include both the systems and the structures and the traditional businessy things, right? The masculine side. When we combine that with our intuition, our creativity, and our personality. When we bring both together, that's when I find business is successful. We enjoy the process and we do things that feel right to our business and to us as the business owner. I am building influence around that. I am by no means trying to become an influencer in the stigmatized definition, if you will. There is a very clear difference. The first one, influencer, is assuming a role. Building influence is about impact. With the second one, building influence, all about impact, it is more about the effects rather than you. I think when people start showing up online, and I see this all the time with clients, they all of a sudden do their first talking video on Instagram and they immediately apologize saying, I'm not trying to become an influencer, but, and then they get into their message. I saw this thing. I noticed this thing, blah, blah, blah. And then they get into whatever it is, and it's related to their business or what they do or what they believe in. You do not need to apologize. You do not need to say, hey, I'm not trying to be an influencer. You need to just own the fact that you are building influence around something that you care about. And that is worth so much more than what people think about you or if they think you're trying to become an influencer. This brings me to number 3, which is you believe it will work. Think about it. If you're building influence and you really care about something and you know you're going for it, you have to believe it will work to stick with it. Because you believing it will work will ensure that you continue showing up and that you grow this to a point where it doesn't matter what anyone said about you, you did it. You hit your goals. You built a movement. You have built a sustainable, successful business. At that point, it's like people can say whatever, but you did it. And so, with that frame of mind, really believing that yes, you can get there, and yes, you can, that makes it easier to keep going when it feels tough, when the doubts come up, when the fears come up. When you post something and you wonder, oh gosh, I probably have weird high school friends that follow me that are like sending this to each other, making fun of me. Who cares if you believe it will work? We live in a digital first era. There's no way to argue that. So, when we talk about believing it will work and putting in the stuff, that brings me to number 4, which is you show up and you learn the platform. This could be anything. It doesn't necessarily need to be social media. It could be email for all intents and purposes. Whatever it is, you decide it will work and you show up and you are consistent and you continue to learn that thing. I always recommend that people really try it themselves before they start hiring out. Because if all of a sudden you're like, you know what, I think we need to show up on Instagram, we're going to hire an agency to do it and focus over here. How do you know that Instagram works for your audience? How do you know that you want your brand to be on Instagram? How do you know that that agency is going to do a good job? Now, of course, if you have funding, if you're at a certain level, if you've already tested the platform for other businesses, then maybe there's a use case where you identify a platform and hire it out, you outsource it. But 95% of people listening to this podcast, that's not the case. We are doing it ourselves. We are looking at our numbers every month. We're trying to figure out how to grow our business and invest in the right spaces. When you do it first yourself, you know exactly what you're hiring for. So before I had my first social person, jump into my account and help me, I knew exactly the things that I struggled with. I knew that I struggled with design because I do not have a design background. I knew that I struggled with learning the strategy of Instagram specifically. And I knew that I could do the overarching marketing strategy. And I validated that it was a platform where the women were at that I wanted to reach with my business, but I needed to figure out my way of reaching them. So then eventually when it came time to change team members, I brought in someone that not only had the design piece, but also had the strategy piece and had a history of growing accounts. Social media is one of the hardest things to grow. I get questions all the time in my email and in the community of, do I hire an agency? Do I hire a person? How much is it? Is it worth it? I've hired people before. It hasn't worked out. Well, show up and learn the platform, and then you'll probably soon realize exactly who you need to hire and what your budget for it is. Every platform is a little different. So if you're committed to LinkedIn, cool. Show up there consistently and you will start to learn, the content that does really well, the things that people engage with, what you like to engage with. And through that alone, you will start to understand, oh, I need to create stuff this way. Or, oh, I've noticed I use interesting fonts in my posts, but the posts that do really well don't tend to use those. So maybe I'll switch. Or maybe you notice people post at a certain time and those posts do really well. All of a sudden you get to iterate, right? That is a never-ending phenomenon of marketing. You will always iterate because there is no tried and true formula that unlocks something and that works forever. It just isn't the case. And I find that most packaged formulas like that just simply don't work for most people because you have to figure out what works for you and your business. And that will probably look a lot like the content that you personally like. But let's keep this focused on visibility. Brings me to number 5. At a certain point, you have to go all in. It's not enough to just be like, okay, this is going to work. This is going to work and I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to invest my time, my energy, and my resources in getting this thing visible because I believe in my why. And my why is more important than my fears. This does not mean showing up and being vulnerable for vulnerability's sake. And I think it's really important to talk about this because this came up on the panel of this last weekend that I was speaking at. And I wish I could have interjected some different stories to share more here because yes, being vulnerable online is how people connect. People connect with people. If you have a service-based brand, you're going to need to show up. These faceless accounts, they actually don't do that well when it comes to conversion. They might have some things go viral, but no one really trusts that brand as much as they would if a person was behind it. Because we trust people. People trust people. So when we show up as a person, yes, we want to show some of our lives so that people see that we're not just a workhorse robot. But you get to show what parts of your life you want to and feel good about and feel appropriate. I think some people feel the need to trauma dump everything or show every little detail of their life, and that's not necessarily what people need or want. So think about it strategically. What's your why? Why are you showing up? What are the beliefs and the impact that you're trying to drive? And then what feels appropriate around that. So you do get to build that personal brand piece and that visibility, but it's also not showing your entire life or trauma dumping on the internet because you think that that is going to be the thing that goes viral or helps you become successful. I think in some ways, there are many stories where someone has talked about something that they previously felt a lot of shame about, and then talking about it online actually helped them heal that. And I think that's beautiful. But those people also tend to work in that field. For example, I talk about past roles of mine, past mistakes I've made in my business as an entrepreneur. I talk about marketing lessons that I'm learning or my clients are learning because I am a business mentor. I also share, things about my personal life. I live in San Diego. I share things about what I'm doing because I also coach women on their whole life. Yes, we're talking about business, but often it's in the context of, hey, I have 2 kids. I have all this stuff. I'm trying to prioritize things. I don't know how to, knock this campaign out of the park. Timmy peed his pants for the 17th time at preschool, and I'm really struggling to figure this out because I have 1,000 things on my brain. Those are the types of conversations I have. So it makes sense for me to talk about that kind of stuff too. If I started talking about past traumas from romantic relationships, it'd feel a little odd. But if I was a relationship coach or a therapist that specialized in relationship things, then talking about my past trauma with relationships would actually be very fitting, and that would make a lot of sense. So you have to figure out what is that lane that you're swimming in, because that's going to determine what you show up with wherever you show up. Again, you never have to share something that you are not comfortable sharing. If there is something that you are still healing within yourself, you have 1000% permission to keep that private. And I think it's really important that that message is shared because we hear so much about being vulnerable and showing up authentically. You need to do what's right for you, my lovely ladies, okay? Okay, I'm glad we covered these things. So let's review it for a second. Becoming visible and making that feel easy. 1, it starts with getting clear on your visibility why. Why do you want to be seen? Why do you want to become visible? 2, stop caring about what other people think and get clear that you are building influence, probably not necessarily trying to become an influencer. Huge difference between those two. And I want you to own the influence that you are building. 3, you believe it will work. That will help you get over those fears of what people think. 4, you show up and learn the platform. A lot of times we're scared to become visible because we don't know how the platform works. So show up genuinely, interact with it also as a viewer, as a listener, and see what content do you like interacting with. Because my bet is that whatever you like producing and creating is going to mimic what you like digesting. Your target audience will also probably be the same. We live in a digital first world, so it's kind of like choose your own adventure with which platform. They're all different, and we'll probably do another episode where we go into different marketing channels, how they're different, and how to play each game. Number 5, the biggest one, go all in. This doesn't necessarily mean allocate your entire budget to become invisible. It means accepting the fact that you are doing this for you, your business, and the impact that you are going to have. And that is more important than the fears, than the doubts, and the cringe that might happen when you first show up and it's a little uncomfortable. Hear me out when I say this. Eventually, you need to care more about your business than what people think about you growing your business. I show up, I record my podcasts, I show up on social media, mainly Instagram and LinkedIn, because I care about what I'm building, I care about the women that I'm helping, and I care about the impact that I have. That outshines all of the fears and doubts. I also have 1,000% belief that what I'm building is going to be very, very, very big. And this is just the beginning. So thank you for being here. If you got anything out of this episode, amazing. Please drop a 5-star review. It goes such a long way in helping us reach other women. Also, we have a free community called Headquarters for Women Entrepreneurs. Please feel free to join us. The link is in the show notes. There are so many supportive resources there and conversations going on. We track each other's intentions and goals to keep each other accountable. It's an amazing space to ask questions, especially if you're hiring or if you want feedback on any marketing or sales material. It's just such a lovely community that's growing. We also have monthly calls and a lot of pop-up trainings, including a lot of guest pop-up trainings coming in. You can join Headquarters, the free community for women entrepreneurs, in the show notes. You can also request content for the podcast in the Ask Community channel. With that, thank you for being here. I'm your host, Samantha Fackler, and I will catch you later.